Thanks. My name's Stan. I'm an alcoholic and addict. And my clean date, I became clean and sober on October 3rd, 1994, and that was over 30 years ago. And I was 28 years old and I was homeless, living on the streets of Atlanta. I wasn't born that way. I come from a middle class, non alcoholic, non addict, non violent family, and I was this violent alcoholic and addict. And I remember thinking I had all this stuff wrong with me. And this guy said, Stan, you just have untreated drug addiction and alcoholism. And I remember thinking, like, that's it? That's all I have? I'm not a psychopath, sociopath, borderline, bipolar, clinical depression, anxiety. He goes, no. No, Stan, in fact, what it says in the doctor's opinion, you're an able, intelligent, friendly person who has untreated alcoholism. Then why have I spent the last 12 years coming in and out of jails and institutions and AA meetings and CA meetings and NA meetings and inpatient treatment and outpatient treatment? He's like, because you never did the program that's laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Dude, and it's like a gut punch. But like the book says, anytime anyone brings something up, I either get irritated, I laugh it off, unfortunately, or I go to a meeting where they're not talking about the solution. My illness is more powerful than an open discussion of Alcoholics Anonymous or an open discussion of CA or an NA meeting or an open discussion of this or that. It's more powerful than group therapy. It's more powerful than medication. It's more powerful than religion. And I remember that guy saying, Stan, religion will save your soul. This book will save your life. See, that caught my attention. And I don't know if I took things out of context or misheard them, but I went to places where they said, just don't drink and go to meetings. Don't use and go to meetings. Okay. That sounds good. It sounds great. And I think I can do it. And I'm emotionally and physically inspired by that. Y'all, I'd go to 6 meetings a day and drink that night or use that night. And that didn't happen once. That didn't happen twice. Hundreds of times. Inpatient treatment. I love inpatient. Look, treatment works because if you follow directions, treatment works. Because every time I left treatment, they said, go to Alcoholics Anonymous, go to Cocaine Anonymous, because they use the big book, Heroin Anonymous, Drug Addicts Anonymous. They all use the big book. Go to those meetings, get a sponsor, and do the steps. So those instructions work. But somewhere I vary off. And all of a sudden, I want to use my version. See, there's customs and practices that you hear at meetings, and then there's things that are in the big book. And like I heard on here, clear-cut directions. What that reading said, they solved the drink problem. The story of how many thousands of men and women who have recovered. But I get in the argument. I can't even get 2 days, but I get in the argument of recovered and not recovered. And what I found was there's 2 separate entities in Alcoholics Anonymous, the recovered and unrecovered. And the recovered stick together and the unrecovered stick together. So how did the recovered get the unrecovered to come over to the solution? How can I be effective in understanding? How can I carry the message, one message? There's one common solution. See, the common problem kept me coming back. The common solution is what keeps me here. See, I just got back from an AA conference because I have a sponsor. His name is Chris Raymer. I went to that conference to listen to Chris, but also I had a sponsee that was speaking on Friday night from South Florida. So I went to meet all these guys, and everybody's recovered. And we're talking about the miracles that happen on a daily basis, not here and there, not once in a while. Daily basis is conscious contact with God. And yet when I first got here, I was confused. But it really wasn't confusion, it was delusion. And it wasn't denial. I wasn't sitting in meetings thinking I was like you and denying it. I had no idea I was like you. See, there was no difference that made a difference, but I thought there were. No wonder they had to come up with a common solution. No wonder in a spiritual experience, it says any alcoholic can recover. Any, period. That's what it says. But see, I want to start doing subsets and subcategories. Well, you got PTSD and you go over there. You got this, you got over there. You start going over here. Oh, you're a lawyer, you need that. Oh, you're an airplane pilot. Oh, you're famous. Now what do we got? Doesn't sound like a common solution to me. That's how simple it is, and that's how hard it is. I'm not complicated. I'm selfish, self-centered to the core. And I don't think it. And that's what it tells me. We're an extreme example of self-will run riot, but usually don't think so. This film that is over my eyes, nothing can remove it up to now, February 10th, 2025, except the 12 steps that are in this book, because that produces the spiritual awakening, spiritual experience, psychic change that they talk about. Catapulted into the fourth dimension means something outside of ordinary experience, and that's what I needed, but I didn't think I needed it. I think I just needed a couple tweaks here and there. A better version of myself. See, I wouldn't sit down and read with somebody about the third step, about that I'm the actor trying to be the director, that I'm a producer of confusion rather than harmonious stuff. But see, I think I'm a good guy that just uses too much and drinks too much. But I'm the only one on this planet that uses that definition. Everybody else has all these other definitions of me. And the way the doctor's opinion, what he puts is, I'm unable to tell the true from the false. My alcoholic life seems like the only normal one. Man. For all I know, I got clean and sober the day before I died. And I had plenty of other dates that I picked. I'm glad I never got none of them did I get tattooed on my body, or I'd be one black blotch of ink, because I over and over and over. And I meant it. Everyone I met. There was no game plan. There was no I meant it wholeheartedly. Just like Bill Wilson did to Lois. These sweet promises. This time I meant it. And what happened? I was drunk a short time later. Always all those stories. Relapsing the unthinkable. I was drunk a short time later. In Fred's story, you men prophesied that if I had an alcoholic mind, there would come a time and day. And that's it. I had no defense. The thought would cross my mind. And these other cats are telling me, yeah, just do the steps, man. That'll provide the defense. And my head's telling me there's no way. You do know that would be impossible. See, the impossible stuff that was that I was unable to get out of being irritable, restless, and discontent. I couldn't get out of the self-talk. I couldn't get out of the philosophical convictions galore that I couldn't live up to, but I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't get out of the depression, anxiety. And you're telling me these 12 steps are going to do it? Please. And you're telling me some guy that we have nothing in common? I need a team, and I need a smart team. Yeah, well, they failed utterly. Because in working with others, it tells me you can help when no one else can. You are uniquely useful. One alcoholic working with another alcoholic. That when Bill Wilson was in that Mayflower Hotel, what do? He didn't journal. He didn't write a gratitude list. He didn't make a God box. He didn't just put the plug in the jug. He didn't say, this time I'm just not going to drink. He went to the payphone and started calling everything he could to find another alcoholic to work with. That's what works. And yet that's the last thing I want to do. Last thing I want to do is be here at this meeting. Last thing I wanted to do this morning was do On Awakening and then go to my 7 a.m. home group that's in Park City, the wake up call. Last thing I wanted to do was a written inventory last night. First thing I want to do is fight. Second thing I want to do is feel good. Third thing I want to do is do nothing. Fourth thing is I want to get a lot for doing nothing. I want to do what I feel like doing. See, in Dr. Bob's story, and I'm not unique to any of this because it's in this book. And in Dr. Bob's story, he writes, My whole life seemed to be centered around doing what I wanted to do without regards for the rights, wishes, or privileges of anyone else, a state of mind which became more and more predominant as the years passed. Yeah. He wrote that back in the 30s, and here I am living in 2025 with recovered drug addiction, recovered alcoholism. And guess what? I'm still selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, and frightened. So if you're new and you're thinking, well, what's the difference? Like night and day. Great events will come to pass. That's just a fact for us. If you want my great events are different than Paul's great events, but they're still great events. And they're from doing this work. If you want great events, if you want miracle after miracle, then do the work. That's the difference. If you want the impossible to become the impossible, that's the difference. This isn't, oh man, my life gets slightly better like a crapshoot. No. It's like transformation. Now I know why people used to talk about, man, it's mystical, it's supernatural, because it is. It's unexplainable. I do this work and I have a profound alteration to my reaction to life. No wonder Bill Wilson says common sense becomes uncommon sense, and uncommon sense becomes common sense. Then why is it so tricky? Because it centers in my mind. If it is 100% treatable, why are most alcoholics and drug addicts going to die of this illness? 100% treatable, period, guaranteed. Because it's sneaky, cunning, baffling power. Cunning is sneaky. Powerful is the most powerful. That's what that guy said to me. Stan, you have the most powerful illness in the world. You need the most powerful solution in the world. I can offer that to you. And we had nothing in common. He's carrying his books around. Had come into the meetings, gotten a sponsor, done the work, and have been sponsoring people ever since, had 15 years clean and sober. I said, what did you used to do? And he goes, he said thespian, which now I know is an actor, but he said thespian on the stages of New York. I thought he said lesbian. I'm like, great. I come up from a family where it's God, family, football. And now this lesbian thespian tells me he's going to help me. That guy saved my life. Because he had the courage and he knew it. And he was carrying his big book and his 12 and 12, and he carried it wherever he went. We'd go to Braves games and he'd have them in his hands. I go, why do you carry your books with you? Because you never know when you can carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, not his message, the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's in the book. The integrity of the program is in the literature. See, I kept doing the customs and practices that I heard in the fellowship. You know how much you can get done in 90 days doing the work? You can get well. But I kept going to 90 meetings in 90 days and drinking on 91. Because again, on 567, what often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. Few months. And I'm living in sober homes and going to treatment and being in jail and learning how to live. I don't have a human living problem. I have a spiritual malady, a spiritual illness. So I needed spiritual tools, not the human tools that I continually tried to use for this spiritual problem. Therapy's great for human tools. Journaling, great human tools. EMDR, great for human stuff. PTSD. I still got to get that stuff treated, but it won't treat my drug addiction and alcoholism. If I'm a real drug addict, real alcoholic that it talks about in the book, not the moderate or hard user. There's a lot of recreational cocaine users. I know them. Look, y'all, I was born in Miami, grew up in South Florida. Most of the crew I hung out with were recreational users. They are not in this program, nor do they need it. We are a separate entity, what the doctor says. That the phenomenon of craving is only in this entity, not in the others. And that the insanity they're talking about is this inability to think straight. Do I have that? That the aggregate of recoveries, the doctor says, the total amount of recoveries are usually made by psychological stuff that is man-made. But this separate entity, I never thought I was part of your separate entity. I kept trying everything else but the 12 steps. And if I did try the 12 steps, it was my version. How did the saying, take what you need, leave the rest, get in a meeting of the 12 steps? I have no idea, but I heard it again at this conference. I just had to follow the clear-cut directions. That's, again, how simple it is and how conniving and hard it is and difficult. Because the minute I go to treat my alcoholism and drug addiction, everything gets confused and I get overwhelmed and it doesn't make sense. Nothing in any other area of my life. When I go to work, when I go to play, when I go to do, I'm straight up. The minute you start talking about treating my alcoholism or drug addiction, all of a sudden my mind starts scrambling around. So how can I carry the message? Because in We Agnostics, it goes all through the book talking about the message. It's not just working with others. Because We Agnostics, it talks again, leaving aside the drink or drug question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. That in working with others and the family afterward, it talks about when the AA book was first published, thousands of men were released from asylums and institutions, never to return. And then it said the power of God goes deep. Why it says in the book we had to stop doubting the power of God. And that's what I kept doing. They're asking me to lay aside my prejudice, and all I want to do is talk about my prejudice. How I can't do this. How this is this, and it just... And all they're talking about to me is, Stan, you're blocked off from the sunlight of the Spirit. That's why we have to do inventory. That inventory would remove the film from my eyes. That I'd already done all this stuff. It was just in this recipe. See, that first meeting I went to when the court sent me in 1982. See, I went in 1982 and got clean and sober in 1994. So that first meeting I went to that I was court ordered to in 1982, the ingredients were there. The recipe was there. Nothing. They haven't changed. Alcoholism hasn't changed. God hasn't changed. The solution's the same. But I kept wanting to do it my way. Then you told me to quit playing God, and I'd get mad, go to another meeting. My feelings get hurt every time you say something that I'm not doing. I blame everybody but me. But I'm the one going around telling people they need to take personal accountability about stuff. And I'm the one telling people I'm a very helpful, caring person. Like, who have you ever helped or cared about? I'm like, nobody, but inside I am. No wonder they use the phrase faith without works is dead. So I'm a dead person. Then I do this work. Then the freedom. The freedom is insane. I had no idea. I had no idea the more disciplined I was, the more freedom I would have. that all I had to do was cooperate. It tells me we had to quit playing God. Why? Because it didn't work. Any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. But there I am just grinding away. It tells me trying to wrestle satisfaction. I'm in collision with everybody and everything, and I can't even see it. And I think I'm courageous by cutting people out of my life. And I think I have abandonment issues, but I make people leave. Devastated. I know what terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair means. I know what it means and feels like to be so hopeless nothing fucking matters. And that's why I did the steps. Because at this point on October 3rd, 1994, nothing mattered. Who cares? Who cares if I die or not? That loving family I haven't talked to them for years. But yeah, when the people at Detox would say, "Hey, how's that relationship with your family?" "Oh, good, pretty good. Yeah, we're close." Yeah, when I was 5 years old at Christmas, but now I'm 28 years old in Detox again. And they won't take my phone calls. And they told me not to have any kind of interaction with them. And I had no place to live, and I'm unemployable. My license has been taken away for 5 years. I steal, I beat up people, I do whatever it takes. And I live under a bridge. And the police either take me to jail or another detox, and that's my life. So yeah, who cares? Who cares if there's a God or not when I got to step 2? I'm just going to do this work because I got no other avenues. Y'all aren't loving me till I love myself. What you're letting me do is, the book clearly says, working with others, if they don't want what you have, they may need to be hurt some more. Alcohol and drugs will be the great persuader. They will beat you into the state of reasonableness. This is probably the hardest thing to say to somebody. Go try some controlled drug use. Go try some controlled drinking. Try it more than once and be honest with yourself. But that's what the book says. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Only. But good news is we got a recipe. You don't have to go find it. We got it right here. This is the most powerful thing I've ever been a part of and the most heartbreaking thing I've been a part of. I sponsor a lot of guys, man. That means I've involved with a lot of families. And it's the same. The ones that do the work get sober and clean and have these unbelievable lives, and the ones that don't. In the suffering. The book talks about we manufacture our own misery. There's pain involved, but I manufacture my own misery out of self. Remember a guy once and he said, "Stan, you want to get really, really depressed? Think about yourself all day." I was like, that's me all the time. That's not everybody, but I don't have clinical depression. I can't stop thinking of myself. I have anxiety because I can't stop thinking of myself. And you're telling me God's going to switch that around? Yeah. I remember I wanted to shake that guy and be like, "Don't you know I can't stop using or drinking?" And he wanted to shake me and be like, "Don't you know the 12 steps works every single time?" See, the book talks about we have to get straight spiritually, then the mental and physical straighten out. See, I kept doing it backwards. I kept physically getting straight. I'd go to detox, nothing in me, nothing, period. Then I get the mental fix, right? Go to a lot of therapy, go to a lot of meetings. Hadn't done anything with the spiritual part, but see, that won't straighten out automatically. So I pick up again. Then I do the steps like it says. Then I straighten out mentally. Then I straighten out physically. Fucking easiest thing I'll do today is not drink or drug. Period. Easiest. And it used to be a crapshoot. I could be at a meeting right now over 30 years ago and then walk out the back door and go drink or drug. And now it's the easiest thing I won't do today. But that's what the book says. That when I go to the 10-step promises, we will recoil from it as a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we'll find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We haven't even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. I wasn't on my knees begging God to take away my drink and drug problem this morning. No, I was on my knees reading On Awakening, because that's what it tells me to do. On Awakening. Because I've done steps 1 through 9. That got me recovered, and 10, 11, and 12 keep me recovered. In order to do step 12, I got to do step 10 the way it says and 11 the way it says. Look, this is a miracle-making machine. Conscious contact on a daily basis. Not here and there, once in a while, when I need it. But there's some stuff I have to do. There's a lot of musts in the book if I want those promises. We must, all over the place. Man. But the results. I needed to make a decision. I needed to do some work. I started getting the results. Then the faith came, but I wanted it opposite as usual. Give me some results. Give me some faith. Let me feel good. Then I'll start doing the work. Then you tell me I'm selfish, self-centered, and once again, I get mad. How dare you? Yeah. Driven by 100 forms. Self-pity, self-centered. Fear. Yeah, I can't stop thinking of myself. So I do this work, and I get that daily reprieve on a day. The one easy thing it says to do in the book, there is one easy thing. It says it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. This program of action, not mine. See, my program of action is always easy. And it usually has nothing to do with the book. So, but this program of action, easy to let up on. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's human instinct or this thing in my brain where the disease sits, but if it's not my idea, I don't want to do it. There's this thing that's always like, don't tell me what to do. But most of all, it's just, you know what? I don't feel like doing it. Stan, you're dying. We have a way out. That's fine. I don't feel like doing it. This isn't some new problem in CA or AA. Those first 3 that got sober, took them 18 months to get 7 more. And they were talking to people daily basis, people dying. The minute they mention God, no thank you. No thank you. No thank you. This is how crazy it is. 1935, 5 people were sober. 1936, 15 people. 1937, 40 people. 1938, 100. And then they wrote the book. This isn't anything new. This thing centers in my brain, and that is my first go-to. This guy, I still go to that reasoning. Well, now I know. No, I don't know. God does. And I need that contact. Because I have a spiritual malady, a spiritual illness. And for some reason, I got to help others. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depends on our constant thought of others and how we may meet their needs. That is the hardest thing for me to do today. Bar none. Maybe not for the codependents, but for the ones that are like me, that are selfish, self-centered to the nth degree. Man, I'll end with this. I'll never, ever be able to repay Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Heroin Anonymous, and Drug Addicts Anonymous for what it's done for me. And yet that first meeting I went to in 1982, I could have cared less if that meeting was there the next day. And now I'm indebted. I'm indebted to those folks. I'm indebted to some folks. Thanks for letting me share.